Welcome to Around the NFL, presented by Barefoot Wines.
I don't know how to make sausage. I don't know what goes into sausage. But I do know how to build a football team, because I've been around for 52 years.
Marc, you've been around 49 now.
Yes.
Do you know how to make sausage?
I do not either. I guess that's the one thing I have in common with him.
To judge Jim Irsay at this time. Dan Hanzus here from the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with Gregg Rosenthal and Marc Sessler. Yes, that is the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, who rocked the football world, to say the least, on Monday with the announcement that fifth-year head coach Frank Reich was fired. And that was, Gregg, seismic news. Anytime a coach is fired in the middle of the year without much of a heads up, it's always big news. But then what took the story from a big story to huge, borderline surreal gallery of the absurd was his replacement on an interim basis, at least, is 47-year-old former Colts center Jeff Saturday, who until this week was an analyst for ESPN. This is some Maverick owner stuff. Whether you think it's good or bad, we could discuss that, and that's what we're about to do on the show today.
It's all unprecedented. It's all disarming, like the music playing so deep into the start of this show, and I like it. You know, I just like being destabilized, and I like to imagine Marc eating sausage, because I think that's the type of meat product that would most revolt him.
Why have we already gone there in this show? A show with a trenchant news item to dig into.
I'm not saying I like the hire of Jeff Saturday, but I do like the theater of absurd that sort of followed the Frank Reich firing. And you like Frank Reich. We're going to get into all of that.
Sure.
But that the press conference kind of took the news, which was already outlandish, and just upped it a little bit.
And
went bigger.
And a little peek behind the curtain. Right before we taped today, I was on NFL Now for like the one last thought segment, and they're like, "Oh, we got to spill out some more of this Irsay press conference, and then we'll have Steve with Andrew and Dan on to react." And then in your ears, like, "Don't go too far. Don't go too far." And
Wait, really?
But my comment was like, "You know what? I don't agree with the decisions being made, but let's bring on the weird. Let's keep 2022 weird." And there are serious sides of the story and big questions, Marc, that you could ask about the Colts process. And we're going to have Zak Keefer on in a little bit to really dig into what's going on behind the scenes there. But overall, and I know you are a man that embraces chaos, this is chaos in the Midwest.
Yeah, because I feel like, on our Friday Fun show, we come up with predictions, and they can be very football hardcore predictions. Some of them can get strange. And if I had told you last Friday that my sports lock of the week would be that Jeff Saturday, ESPN analyst, former Colts center, would be named the Colts interim coach, you'd just laugh me off the show and we'd end it. Because it's that absurd.
This was a missed opportunity.
It was, but it's so far afield.
That's a new thing with our listeners, which I really like. It shows up in my mentions all the time. Anytime something stupid happens, like McKinney for the Giants, who broke his hand in an ATV accident in Cabo, it's like, oh, did Marc predict that on the Friday Fun show?
It's a great way to steer the minds of the viewers if that's what they think.
But before we get to Zach, because really we need to figure out what's going on with the Colts, and nobody knows more about that team than Zak Keefer. Let's get a little more sound from Jim Irsay, just to give you, again, if you're not caught up on the story, during Monday Night Football, the Colts call a press conference, and Irsay explains himself. Some would say defended himself. Chris Ballard, the GM's there, and, of course, Jeff Saturday as well, who's just caught in the middle of all this. Let's listen from Irsay.
I'm glad he doesn't have any NFL experience. I'm glad he hasn't learned the fear that's in this league. That's because it's tough for all our coaches. They're afraid. They go to analytics, and it gets difficult. I mean, he doesn't have all that. He doesn't have that fear, and there was no other candidate. We were fortunate that he was available.
All right, and we are fortunate to say that this man is available because we know he's extremely busy. I saw that he was on the Pat McAfee show. I'm sure The Athletic is hitting him up. He's got all sorts of stuff going on. Let's welcome in the great Zak Keefer, who covers the NFL and the Colts for The Athletic. He's also a co-host of the 1% Better Colts podcast. Man, I'll tell you what, Zach, it hasn't been a good season for this team, but in terms of stuff to talk about, home run.
I'm exhausted, guys, but it's never boring around here. And I was just losing my mind laughing at what you guys were talking about. I mean, what was the weirdest part of last night? Was it the sausage comment? Was it the reference to the CIA? Was it Michael Jordan's missed shots? Was it the trip to Mars? Was it comparing Jeff Saturday to Don Shula, Tony Dungy, and Bruce Arians? I mean, where do we start?
I think I'll start with, I was going to actually use from your great column you wrote off the press conference, your paragraph where you reference those things, but I'll use the first sentence instead, in which you wrote, "This feels bold at best and reckless at worst, the decision to fire Reich and bring in Saturday. An unprecedented gamble in modern NFL history, one that Jim Irsay spent the better part of 35 minutes Monday fervently defending as only he can." In terms of like the surreal meter, like as a Jets fan, I know like Rich Cimini and everybody on the Jets beat will talk about the Belichick press conference forever when he resigned as HC of the NYJ. On the surreal meter, what is it for you, 1 to 10, while you're sitting in that room digesting it?
The surreal meter around here is a lot higher than other cities. I will say that. Like, if you're around Jim Irsay a lot, you hear these things all the time. Like, it's not abnormal for him to say in training camp, the goal is to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. Like with this team. And so you're kind of used to these rambling press conferences where you get mentions of John Lennon and Bob Dylan and the CIA and whatever it is. So we're used to the unusual. But in terms of my career, I've covered this team for 9 years now. Nothing will top August 24th of 2019 when Andrew Luck retired. But this is up there in terms of just a surreal moment. And this was the first time I thought this was important. This is the first time Jim Irsay made some disparaging marks at the media, and same with Chris Ballard. They were on the defensive. They were a little angry, a little feisty about this decision. And, look, they're hiring a guy who was 20 and 16 as a high school coach to run an NFL team, who was meeting with coaches yesterday he didn't know the name of. Like, this is unprecedented. And to question the qualifications of Jeff Saturday without questioning his playing credentials is completely fair. So was this weird? Yes, it was.
Like, do you think that he is going to have the full support of his coaching staff? Like, how do you think he is able to transition this week, and we've seen some of the decisions he's making in terms of play caller and stuff now, into being all of their bosses, and how do you think that works over the next 9 weeks?
Yeah, that's a good question, Greg. I think both things can be true at the same time. Like, Jeff Saturday is an awesome dude. Like, if you guys have ever met him, he's an awesome dude. He was an awesome player. But this doesn't make sense in any world that we live in. And I think whether those coaches would ever admit it or not, they have to be livid. And to be honest, they're running out of guys to fire. Like, they literally are running out of people to fire. They're going to turn to a 30-year-old assistant quarterbacks coach to call plays on Sunday named Parks Frazier, who 4 years ago was a assistant to Frank Reich, like an assistant, like the guy that would show up at 4:30 in the morning to get the play scripts ready. And he was a quality control coach 2 years ago. And now he's going to be calling plays for Sam Ehlinger, for Jeff Saturday. Like, this has got maybe one win left in it the rest of the season. It's just hard to see this team. It's hard to take this team seriously right now.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a legitimate November acid trip for everyone who's absorbing the news. I'm certainly sure for you. I guess my question, because Jeff Saturday is a savvy guy. He's been in the media. He was a player. He's been around coaches. He understands like the culture of a locker room and what this kind of move would mean to players in a locker room and what they've already done to the players in that locker room the last couple of weeks. How does he, or do you think he was told about the future? Because it sounds like it's just walking into a disastrous 8 weeks. Why would he want to do it? I guess it's like behind closed doors. You're my guy for head coach unless like you don't want to do it. Like, why would you leave your career and come do something where you're now in the middle of this maelstrom? I don't understand Jeff Saturday's decision to take the job.
Marc, before I answer, I have to mention I got on Twitter last night and I saw your tweet that basically said Jim Irsay is driving the Colts spaceship into the sun.
Yeah.
And I just lost it. I don't know why that was so funny to me. I could hear it in your voice. That's kind of where we're at. And one of the most poignant moments of this press conference last night was I asked Jeff Saturday, like, no offense, Jeff, but like, how the hell did this happen? And he said, basically, I was as stunned as anybody. When he got the call late Sunday night, he asked Jim Irsay point blank, why are you considering me for this job? Like, that's a totally fair question. And we asked Jim Irsay that question 15 times in 15 different ways last night. And the only real answer we got was that he likes him. And Jim Irsay mentioned that, look, I mean, this is a real quote, that this team has been one of the winningest teams since 2000. They're in the upper quartile of the top quartile of the upper quartile. Whatever the hell that means. But the problem is they're trying to grab onto the glory days. They're trying to grab onto the Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck days. They do not have that quarterback. This was the worst offensive performance we've seen from the franchise in 25 years. On Sunday in Foxborough, they went 0 for 14 on third down. But to answer your question, Mark, the players were not on board with the benching of Matt Ryan. They were not. Frank Reich's hands were tied. You could make a very strong case they should be playing two quarterbacks instead of Sam Ehlinger, the other being Nick Foles. Are they trying to lose games? They keep saying they're not. They keep fighting off the question that they're waving the white flag. But every move they have made, these are Jim Irsay moves, has made them a worse team. And it's hard to see them winning many more games the rest of the season. I would love to know what these veteran defensive players, now the defense is bringing it. The defense is playing well this season, but nobody knows. And I would love to know what Stephon Gilmore thinks. This is a guy that was with New England for a long time, an adult organization. What does he think? What does DeForest Buckner think? I mean, it's going to be a fascinating day in the locker room tomorrow, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you had said earlier, what does this team have one win in it the rest of the season? I think that, to me, it seems like that's the goal here at this point. It's a hard pivot by Irsay, who has a finite amount of time to build another champion, and he sees that's not what this team was going to be. I wanted to ask you
Wait,
about...
you think he's trying to lose?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, look at the moves.
At this point, I believe he is, and he's sending his buddy Saturday in there to kind of keep morale up and have a guy that he could hang out with in this capacity. I don't know.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm curious about the relationship with you guys in the media also, with Irsay and with the GM, Chris Ballard, who, by the way, got a vote of confidence yesterday. Here's Ballard getting fired up, talking about his process, and one of several grenades, I thought, lobbed away towards Keefer and company.
We've not played as well up front as we need to play. And I think you all know as y'all have been kicking the shit out of me for years for not drafting wideouts, and all of a sudden I look up and, we're underperforming on the offensive line right now. And that's got to take another, that's got to improve. That has to improve. And then the turnovers during the year, that you just look at it. We're turning the ball over, and we're turning it over inside our 50.
And I'm just noticing for the first time, Zach, that when he says "and the turnover," he's talking over a reporter who was coming in with a follow-up question. It looked like, what is the general vibe between what you guys are doing and the team, and how does that kind of bake into the overall puzzle of what's going on over there?
Yeah, it's not good. They basically made Frank Reich fall on the sword. On Sunday, it was sad more than anything. He came into the press conference room in Foxborough, and you could just tell. You could hear it in his voice. You could see it in his face. Frank had known for a couple of weeks that it was about to end, and it did end. And then they moved to Jeff Saturday, which really gets all the attention. We're not talking about Frank Reich anymore. That move did make sense. The offense was going nowhere. He wasn't getting it done, but at the same time, he had 6 starting quarterbacks in 5 years. Now, his hands are dirty in that because he pushed for the Carson Wentz trade, and that didn't work. But that's an organizational failure. Like, that's a failure from the top down to everybody. They couldn't get this right. And Chris Ballard, his hands is dirty are as well, because at the root of all of this season, at the root of all of it is this offensive line that can't protect. Sam Ehlinger was sacked on 9 times. Use the Ferris Bueller quote, like 9 times on Sunday, the most in 5 years. And that was why Matt Ryan wasn't able to be effective. Now, Matt Ryan threw interceptions and fumbled, but nobody could have played behind that offensive line with the exception of maybe Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. So, that's where Ballard's mistakes in the offseason have cost this team. And that's sort of the source of tension right now is they thought they could play Matt Pryor at left tackle. Then they moved him to right tackle. Then they played him at right guard. They've now benched him at 3 different positions, which I can't remember ever happening with this team. It took him 9 games to realize that, and they started Danny Pinter at right guard. I don't need to go on and on about this, but this offensive line is unrecognizable right now, and that's at the root of all of this. I mean, go back to week 1, you've got Frank Reich as head coach, you've got Matt Ryan as your quarterback, and you've got Marcus Brady as your OC. right now in week 10, it's only November 8th. They have Jeff Saturday as a head coach. They have Sam Ehlinger as the quarterback, and they have Parks Frazier calling the plays. Like, what the hell just happened?
Right. And I mean, at week 1, there was a lot of optimism about the Colts. I didn't remember this, but Steve Weish, our friend, reminded me. He was on the Around the NFL prediction show, and he had Frank Reich as his coach of the year and the Colts making the Super Bowl. And he remembers me jumping in and being like, ooh, that's a good pick for coach of the year. So it's like, because it's just like
at
they're
least
going to.
You can own it.
Yeah, at least they could beat expectations and all. I look at that offensive line and I think, yeah, Chris Ballard has a lot of fault, but I think you have to listen to what he said. You're at fault, Zach. You banged on him about investing too much in the offensive line.
Yes.
And he fell for that. Which that little joke didn't really make any sense because they're still the most highest paid offensive line in the league, and the guys who are making a lot of money aren't doing well. Right. So that didn't totally make sense. But I do put there's some blood on your hands too, Zach.
I think so.
I appreciate that. I you know what? It made sense to me. It made sense to me when Matt Ryan came here. It did make sense, like on a football level. Like he was going to get the ball out quicker. He was going to make the layups, right? That was the famous comment last year about Carson. They had Jonathan Taylor coming off an 1,800-yard season. I just didn't see a line that's, like you mentioned, Greg, the highest paid in the league, $42 million of the salary cap this year. I didn't see Braden Smith regressing, Ryan Kelly regressing, and Quentin Nelson hasn't been the same player. So you put all that together, and that's really where it all went wrong. But look, my hands are dirty too, right? I miss blocks. I dropped the football as well. So it's getting bad when they're taking shots at the media.
Well, and of course, Irsay was a journalism student. He made that clear to all of us. Secondly, I would imagine if you're sitting in the offices of HBO, you were wishing that last year's in-season Hard Knocks was occurring right now, because, I mean, that would be something I would be watching the minute it came on. What would Jeff Saturday need to do now there's obviously the whole thing with the Rooney Rule has people up in arms, and it should. I mean, this whole thing feels insane. But what would Jeff Saturday need to do to convince this organization, or just Jim Irsay, that he is going to be a head coach after this 8-game stint?
Just lose, baby.
Yeah, follow the owner's orders, because clearly the owner is making all the calls. I mean, I don't even think Jeff Saturday has the power to play the quarterback he wants.
Well, did Frank Reich? Your reporting after I noticed this firing was interesting, because you guys seemed very clear that Irsay has been making all these calls when it came to bringing in Matt Ryan, getting rid of Carson Wentz, and this benching.
Yes, that's good to point out. For a long time, he's been the owner for 27 years here. He has fought to be the owner his father wasn't. For those of you who remember Bob Irsay was a crazy, volatile owner who would go down at halftime of games and demand that the coach fire the quarterback. And if he didn't bench the quarterback, he would fire the coach before the game ended, and then he would forget about it 2 hours later. So we're talking absolute chaos. So Jim Irsay grew up in the league watching that and decided to be the exact opposite. He would stay out of all this. This is a third consecutive decision where his hands have been very much all over. He demanded that they moved on from Carson Wentz. He told them to bench Matt Ryan, which I don't think Frank Reich wanted to do. I don't think any coach would want to bench Matt Ryan because he's clearly better than Sam Ehlinger. And then he hired Jeff Saturday, and I don't think that's a Chris Ballard move. Why would a GM on thin ice want to hire an unproven, untested head coach in Jeff Saturday? So Jim Irsay's had his say the last couple of weeks, the last couple of years, which is very uncharacteristic from him. And that's a bad way to run a franchise. That's meddling. And you got to wonder, like, who's going to make the next decision? He said that Jim Irsay said that Chris Ballard will be back next year, but who's going to make the head coaching hire? Usually that's a GM thing. But
he also said Frank Reich was safe 6 days ago, or at least multiple national reports said Frank Reich is safe last Monday. And one week later,
so
he's gone.
We asked that at the very end of the press conference. Why should anything you say right now, Jim, be taken into account? Because it's not been true. Well. And it did not go well. He quoted his record, but the problem is the record is Peyton Manning's not coming through the door. Andrew Luck's not coming through the door, and this team is going one direction. It's not up.
Zach, we really appreciate your time here. We know you're super busy, so good luck with everything else. I feel like this is just the beginning of what's going to be a wild ride through the end of the season and beyond. So you're well equipped to handle it. So we'll probably check in with you again, but we'll give you a little bit of a break. I know you need it. You deserve it.
A wild ride back into the upper quartile of the NFL.
Yes.
So thanks for having me, guys.
There he goes.
Thank you.
And I want to just add one more thing that if you are unaware, because we just talked about at the end of Sunday Night's show that we have a lot of new listeners, that Zak wrote an amazing piece on Chris Wesseling that you could get on The Athletic if you're a subscriber.
Now, I do want to just point out the math that Irsay was using in terms of the quartile. And
it does not. It's Dan math.
And where I think he was going with it. Now, he said, look, we're the 4th winningest franchise in the league since 2000. Okay, 4 out of 32. 32 teams, 4th place.
Mm-hmm.
That means we're in the upper quartile of winners. Now, the quartile here would be how many teams here, Dan?
Quartile's 8.
Yeah, so that would be 8. So that's a true statement. They are in the top 8. He said they're 4th.
Don't ask me any more questions, by the way.
Okay,
I'm tapping out at 1.
Okay, then, by the way, they found out they fact-checked they're not the 4th winningest, but we'll put that aside. So they are in the upper quartile winners, and he is saying in the top quartile of that upper quartile. Now, the top quartile of that upper quartile,
that would be 2.
That would be 2.
Right.
So that would also not be correct. He could have just said we're in the top portion of that upper quartile.
Maybe
and I think that's where he was going. They cut the half. He could have just said we're in the top 8th of the league. Maybe that sounds.
Maybe in his world,
quartile's kind of a cool word. You got to give him that.
Well, he had to use it 3 times.
Right.
He didn't need to do that. But maybe that's why they hung that infamous banner back then, because in Irsay's world,
banners.
We are winning extremely important things.
Well, I think they should make a new banner, top upper quartile of the top quartile.
That's very good.
Noisy
somebody
banner.
Get to work on the Photoshop on that one. And before we take a break, I just want to ask you guys, I had to let Zak go because he's getting worked hard by that team right now. But who wants that job? Let's say it turns out Jeff Saturday is 8 and done. Who wants that job? Who wants a job when the owner clearly is turning into his father and has got his fingers all over the operation, and the GM is just going to do whatever he can do to stay alive, and he probably has no power either. It's that's a tough gig to walk into.
When you're trying to advertise your own company as a great employer or yourself as a great boss, and you do what he's done over the last week, you're telling common NFL fans, that place sounds extremely toxic and totally bizarre.
Yeah.
And do I want to step into that drama and be the next person yanked around by whatever's happening?
There's only a few. There's only a few coaches that have options every year. So I'll give you the boring answer.
Jesus
that
Christ.
Everyone wants.
There's only
these
32
jobs.
chairs.
You know what I mean?
32 chairs.
But Josh McDaniels, big winner in this. He can look back and say, "See, I was right. It's a good thing I
don't know about that.
backed out of that job."
He's not doing. In fact, it's funny that Jeff Saturday a couple weeks ago as an analyst tweeted out the Raiders stink basically, and so now you have to go. We'll go find out how much the Raiders stink with the situation they're facing.
In all seriousness, too, though, that just tells you that this was not on Jeff Saturday's radar.
No,
not
of course
any.
not.
Well, he said it was surprised by it when the phone rang.
Yeah, would you think I'm going to be a head coach in 30 days? It's a bizarre story. But remember, before we go to break, guys, that it's not that complicated. It's not.
We don't build rockets to go to Mars. We're not nuclear scientists. That is none of our jobs here. It's a very simple jobs that we do here. We cultivate winning cultures. We cultivate toughness. We live by our integrity about the people that we are. And we don't expect anything more than we expect from ourselves.
I'm motivated. I feel motivated.
I feel power.
Yeah.
That's the spaceship driving into the sun.
Right to the sun. We'll be right back with Bridget Condon. Welcome back. Joining us now, so we had Zak Keefer, and now we have another friend of the show, NFL Network's own host and reporter, Bridget Condon. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. This music is incredible. I feel like I need to be strutting down a runway.
There you go. That's why I like what we call behind the glass. It's known as sausage fingers, because it gives you an idea of the person's personality, because they always say what they think it sounds like. Like Kyle Brandt, as an example, said, "This sounds like silk stockings on Skinamax back in 1995.
Said a lot about Kyle Brandt.
And Bridget, you said this is you on a runway.
Yeah, like slow motion, walking
Wonderful.
down. Yeah, just setting the mood for Sunday night. Is this the new Sunday night football song? We've been waiting all day for this.
Maybe. I kind of like it. How are you, Bridget? Welcome.
I'm great. It's Tuesday. As good as you can be on a Tuesday.
You just celebrated a birthday.
I know. I thought that the reason
Didn't get the invite to the party, but that's cool.
Well, I figured the reason why I'm allowed on the show now is because I'm 21.
I
just had to wait. Finally.
That's good. I think having Bridget on the show is to show how much we like you. You're coming on right now. We're going to talk a little TNF later. But what we're going to talk about right now, hit it, Gravedigger.
Stick a fork in him.
Yes. Ooh. Dave Damashek on the Vox there. A long-time segment, Bridget. If you just turned 21, that means this segment started when you were about 13 or so.
No, it was early teen years.
I remember it.
Yes.
It's pretty pivotal in my teenage life.
Yeah, it was formative, I'm sure. Stick a fork in them. We are at the time of year now where it's time to figure out which teams we don't need to take seriously anymore. In fact, I would say on some level, Marc, this is your favorite segment as a podcast person, right? Because whenever you could just throw teams into the sun, that makes life better.
Well, I mean, we approach these teams differently. Gregg and I certainly do. And when I see a team sitting out there at 2-7 and we're getting deep into November,
bye-bye.
Yeah, my mind is starting to lose a grip on why I should spend a second thinking about you.
Right, you're thinking like that's not going to make my Game Pass rotation. The problem is they play other good teams, and then it's hard to watch
one.
There's
a bigger problem
it's a struggle
without the other.
Sessy.
What?
Sessy now has the QB index on his plate.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
He must
you
watch
can't.
every snap.
Not only that, when they bring in like the fourth-string quarterback in Week 16, the teams are like almost trying to lose games. You got to watch those guys.
I have learned that will be my
ranking.
personal Vietnam.
Bridget,
this segment, by the way, hasn't existed. I don't think for 3 or 4 years. They just quietly
it's
went
Marc's
away.
favorite segment, and then so it goes away for 4
we've
years.
done
That's
it in
how
a
the
while.
show
Do you guys have
operates.
a real fork? And you can...
I think there was a time where we had maybe some props, but the budget's been cut. So, but what we're going to do here, I know since you were a teen when this was launched, each of us will take turns nominating a team. And what does stick a fork in them? It means they have no chance to make the playoffs. And then you could say, and certainly a person like a Gregg, for instance, will say, well, anybody, if they win all their games, they can make the playoffs.
Because most years
so
we've done this, we've gotten it wrong. We've gotten at least one
not
team
always,
wrong.
Not always. Usually. But this takes a little bit of intestinal fortitude to kind of put yourself out on a limb and be sure of a team that is cooked. So before we get into nominating teams, it has to be unanimous. We all have to vote a team forked, okay? I want to throw 3 out just to get warmed up, get some blood on our hands quickly, Irsay style. And you guys can let me know if there's pushback here. But can we safely fork, for instance, the Carolina Panthers?
That was your team that you covered
I
initially
know.
at NFL
See, my
Network.
hesitation here is because the fan base already hates me, and if I fork them, they're
personal.
going to hate me even more, but I'm going to fork them. Absolutely. I mean, if you have P.J. Walker starting, and let me remind you, he had a 0 passer rating in the first half against the Bengals.
That's mean.
Yeah.
No, it's not mean. It's factual.
Yeah.
He's starting over Baker Mayfield, which there is some – I don't know if you guys have delved into his contract. There is something there to be said. They get a 2024 pick if he plays less than or they get a, fourth rounder if he plays more than 70% of snaps.
Got it.
Or less. And 5th rounder if he plays opposite.
Yeah, they're cooking the books a
Right.
little here.
So park him on the bench. That's why Darnold's off the IR. I would think I wrote in the power rankings. I feel like this is P.J. Walker's final start, regardless of outcome. They'll probably, if Darnold's healthy, just run him out there and hope that takes them home. Especially if you're saying it's advantageous for their future not to play Mayfield.
Sam Darnold.
I'm comfortable forking the Panthers, although it would be the quickest, possible regret that we've ever had doing this, because when they play Thursday night, let's say they beat the Falcons Thursday night and then the Bucs lose in Germany, which is very possible.
So you're falling into your trap.
No,
though.
I'm just saying they would
That's what
only
you
be
do.
1 game out of first, but I do feel comfortable that they will not win enough to pass Atlanta or Tampa over the course of the
it's
season.
interesting
Let's stick a fork in them.
how much a difference a week makes, as they say, because like a week ago I was like, this team is frisky. Walker's looking intriguing.
Yeah.
Like the offense has awoken. Like were they much better post Matt Rule?
Right.
And then the Bengals game happened, and I was like, "You're out of here.
Yeah.
Well,
You're out of my universe."
I'm a big Steve Wilkes fan. I have a lot of respect for him, and he seems like he doesn't care what anyone thinks, which I kind of like. That Panthers, I feel like a lot of times have just been worried about the outside perspective. He doesn't care. He's doing it his way. I'm a fan of him, but overall, I don't think they do it. They always find a way to get your hopes up really high and then take you right back.
They need that high pick. They're a team.
Yeah, they need that first round.
And I would be on the fence given the division they play in had not I started P.J. Walker over Davis Mills in fantasy this week, and it cost me a win.
Too.
So for that reason alone, I also vote they're forked. Can we quickly fork the Houston Texans, the one-win Texans? We don't really need to delve deep here. Any pushback on that one?
No, let's fork them.
The Texans are cooked. Can we fork the Colts? Can we? I know they have 3 wins.
I have one concern about this Colts thing.
Okay.
Is that they're trying so hard for this to spin south, and we've covered it in our previous segment. But what if, like, the greatest sports thing ever happens of all time, and Jeff Saturday guides them to, like, a 6-2 mark or something, and they eke out, like, a wild card?
Well, we don't get the guillotine if that happens.
I'm just saying, like, I kind of have the feeling that when the whole universe is saying, oh, this is going to go so negatively, I don't know.
Well, we do make a generous donation.
But I will fork them.
To a charity if we get that. Like, that is in honor of that city if we get it wrong.
Yes, that is true. Gregg specifically will make the
it depends.
donation.
Whoever nominates the team, that's the
But
person.
we don't want to force you into it either, Mark. If you really think that some funny business could happen, but just know it might come back on you if they get worse, for instance.
I don't have a big problem forking the Colts for the same reason as the Panthers, the game that I just watched.
I was thinking, okay, maybe you could make an argument for the Colts because their division's so lousy, but they've almost played all of their division games already somehow, and they weren't good in those. And they still have the Eagles. They still have a game at Cowboys, at Vikings, at Giants. That's a lot.
Are you buying my
games.
scenario that maybe something magical happens?
No,
here,
like
Bridget?
I don't want to speak because I don't want to get them upset with me, but I could side with you just in a sense that it would just be a crazy situation, right? Jeff Saturday, he's going to go in there and rah-rah this locker room. How long does that last, though?
Who knows if they even want him in the locker room? The coaching staff isn't going to want him there. It's going to be a mess.
It does appear fairly toxic.
I don't know. Maybe after they hire the 30-year-old today to call the plays, I want to.
I'm sure that will be
walk back my decision here.
I would love for it to happen, if only because we do these Monday Night Football recaps, and I happen to look at the schedule the rest of the way, and Joe and Troy are going to be wondering what happened to these great late season games. The Monday Night Football schedule the rest of the year is rough. It includes 2 Colts games, including a Colts-Steelers game in Week 12 and a Colts-Chargers game. At least the Chargers maybe will be in the mix in Week 16.
It makes sense because there's so many.
That's your personal apocalypse.
Right, that's sort of
There's so many
I'm
quote-unquote safe teams this year that are having a really bad season. I'm guessing they're showing up repeatedly. All right, let's now nominate some teams. So we got 3 already forked. Get us going,
who you
Bridget.
are is terrible.
Okay.
I'm like, where's this coming from?
Same.
Okay, I am going to fork the Packers. I know this is controversial.
Well, you're going to nominate the Packers.
I just ruined it.
Well, that's
It was-
spicy.
Okay,
though. I like
okay.
that.
Yeah, it was nice having you on, Bridget.
I'll take my exit.
There she
okay,
goes.
I'm going to
21
nominate.
years young.
Do I tell you? Yeah, it's just me because I haven't lived this much.
So youthful.
Do I tell you why I'm nominating them?
Yeah.
You're
Make
okay.
the case.
You're,
Make
you're,
the
making-
case.
you're pitching them.
Okay. All right. I am pitching the Packers 3-6. I know it's controversial. Aaron Rodgers, an incredible quarterback. Never bet against him. I'm betting against him. They lost to the Lions. And not only did they lose to the Lions, 9 different players got hurt during that game. They just lost Rashawn Gary for the season. Eric Stokes, I don't know what the latest on him, but questionable. Romeo Doubs with the ankle sprain. Aaron Jones, of course, he's practicing this week, but when Aaron Jones goes down, your biggest threat on offense, I don't know what else you got. Mike McCarthy, he got choked up yesterday talking about going back to Green Bay. I think the Cowboys are going to destroy them this weekend.
That's some good zaddy energy from McCarthy, by the way.
Yeah.
Not only, so their next 3 games, Cowboys, Titans, Eagles. It's just, they could potentially be 3-9.
I got flamed on our Thursday preview show for suggesting that the Packers might only win 7 games.
Okay. Why didn't you tell me that before the show?
Well, no, I'm with you. I'm siding with you now because
You also said you almost locked them up against the Lions. You're all over the place.
I also don't recall you being flamed.
Yeah.
Greg was like snickering at his own little research, didn't agree, but then he's like, actually, I do agree.
This is his interpretation.
that's accurate.
I think
it was
slide
you made
over
a bold
little bit
statement. I was just surprised, yeah.
Because Bridget's here, I have to slide over a little bit closer to you guys, and I could feel the heat between you right now over that situation.
Well, I'm not aiming
making
for
me
that.
uncomfortable.
I love what Bridget did because it is bold, and my initial instinct is to push back because it's Aaron Rodgers. And when I watch these games, I don't think he's that far away. To me, he's like Tom Brady, where if I had to rank him, and this is about where they are in the PFF rankings, I'd say they were in the top 12 quarterbacks of the year. Like they're around 12, each of them. They're not getting killed because of their quarterback play, and there's a lot of good players on their team, and they have a history, obviously, under Matt LaFleur. And so if there's a team that's going to rally from 3-6, they would be it. But you are getting ahead of it. With them playing the Cowboys, the Titans, and the Eagles in the next 3 weeks, nothing that they've done this season indicates that they can go 2-1 in those games. And if they don't go 2-1 in those games,
You're cooked.
They're
cooked.
already 5 games behind the Vikings.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not going to win the
Division's
division.
gone.
The division's basically gone, and the NFC third wild card might be a little sketchy where you only need 9 wins. So it's not crazy, but I just haven't seen
be
anything
generous
to
here.
believe
Here's
that
the other
they're going to
problem.
win 2 or
They
3 of those
stink.
games.
Well, that's
That's a
an
fundamental
overarching
issue that we have to deal with here.
But the Cowboys, Titans, Eagles, at Bears. Let's say best case scenario, they go 2-2, so they're 5-8, and then they get home Rams, at Dolphins, home Vikings. I'm gonna
Dolphins?
I'm gonna fork them. I'm gonna fork them.
Wow.
I feel like they're done.
Do they stink, or are they just really unlucky? They seem very mediocre, and they just find ways to lose close games.
Tell me that loss was unlucky against Detroit.
I think it was a little unlucky.
The
They outgained them
quarterback-
by 100 yards.
I know, but Greg, look at what every other team has done to Detroit's defense, and I
scored
kind of just
9
think
points.
like it's hard to adjust to what's happening in Green Bay.
Yes.
It's hard to adjust to what's happening. The fact that Aaron Rodgers is not playing very well. It's environmental. It's not just that he's lost all his skill, but he seems slightly disinterested, super miffed. There's bad juju on that team, and their schedule is brutal, like you mentioned.
I'm with you. I will fork the Packers. I feel like an NFC team, though, will be the team that makes us sweat and
Probably.
gets those charities excited, because that 7th spot in the NFC might only require 8 or 9 wins, and one of these teams.
And the last time we did this, there was one less playoff team that got in. So there is a bigger window for teams to find
did
a
we
way
fork
in.
the Raiders last year? Like we did a casual exercise of it. I don't even
I don't know.
remember.
All right. How
So
about
now that we're all forking them, they're gonna get.
Now they're
gonna
done.
destroy the Cowboys.
It's
this
unanimous.
Sunday.
It
That's
is
what's gonna happen.
unanimous.
We'll see.
This
That's
is the
how it
moment.
works.
All right. I will throw it to Marc Sessler for the next nomination.
All right, I'm forking the Raiders. Smell you later. Do I need to explain why?
Yeah, well, that's how podcasts work.
Well, okay. I mean, I think they're a giant mess. To get shut out in this league right now, which they did against the Saints, and then to get shut out last week in the second half against the Jaguars, just to have games given away that way. When, like, you should, if you're the Raiders, when we liked them for a couple weeks, you have a 17-0 lead on the Jacksonville Jaguars, another team learning how to win with a first-year head coach, their first-year head coach. And you cannot run the ball. You cannot. Derek Carr vanishes. The whole team goes into some sort of other dimension and scores no points. And Devontae Adams has 0 yardage in the second half after a great first half. You're not adjusting. The scheme is not being picked up. I don't know if it's Derek Carr or if it's the Raiders or a combination of both. It's their defense. There's nothing to like. And you're in the AFC, which is going to be a lot harder to make the playoffs in. And are we going to say they're about to go 8-2 or something, or 8-1? No.
I'm going to push back on this one a little bit. I'm looking at their schedule. They got the Colts, and they actually couldn't ask for a better matchup. So you get your third win there. At the Broncos, not afraid of that. They also got the Steelers on the schedule and the Rams, who are obviously a mess, and I think they'll come up. So while I'm not huge on the Raiders, I'm right now, I'm not going to officially cast the vote because I want to see where everybody else is, but I look at their schedule, and I still see a path to them being in the playoff race at the end of December.
Their writers, for instance, for The Athletic, and a lot of people covering the team, felt like that was the end of their season.
They're very down on them.
I feel like pushing back, too, because they've played one less game. They only have 6 losses. They need to get wins, but they had their bye week already. And they did it last year. That's what's creeping me out a little bit about them, because like they were a veteran team last year that we would have never have expected put that in. And they got really lucky, and all that luck has gone against them this year. They are 0-5 now in one-score games. They've been in all these games. Could they get a little luckier? I'm not going to fork them yet.
Siciliano looked at me like I was crazy, but I said, to blow 3 17-point leads in the league and set records, you have to have a 17-point lead first. So there is
like the Ravens.
There's
basically.
still the bones of a team that could go on a run here. I don't think it's going to happen, but I also don't feel strong enough to absolutely remember. Forkham is no chance.
They have
right.
no
I just
chance.
mentioned that this last year, this magical last year that you're referring to, and trying to say it's the same thing. They were 5-2. They're 2-6, and they closed their season against the Niners and Chiefs.
Yeah, but are the Chiefs even playing for something there? There are different things in play even on that. I don't know. Bridget, how about you?
Well, it sounds like it's not happening.
I'm kind of torn because when your quarterback goes in and says,
not personal,
there's a lot that I want to say, if I'm honest, I don't want to say it here. Obviously, there's
sure.
tons of friction. And when the person leading your team is speaking like that, I don't think it ends well for any team. I don't think that I don't know if I want to fork them, though, because like you said, the AFC West is so bizarre to me right now. The Raiders could have won that game week 1 against the Chargers. I still think there's a weird thing between the Chargers and the Raiders. I still think the Raiders could potentially win their second matchup. And, yeah, they could beat the Colts. They could beat the Broncos. I don't know what's going on with the Seahawks. They're way better than we all thought. But I don't know. I think at some point the pieces have to click for this team. I think maybe just because I had so much hope for them going into this season, it's really hard for me to steer away from them. Devontae Adams, Derek Carr, we have to see something between them, I think, at some point. I don't know. Maybe I'm being positive.
You're going to have to keep watching the Raiders, Mark. I'm sorry.
I mean, I enjoyed the vibrant discussion around that. So
Good. How about you, Gregg? Nominate a team.
I feel bad because the Jaguars not being a part of the 2022 season, I think, is an under-the-radar, sad storyline because I just thought they were going to be in the mix, the Jaguars.
Oh, right. I understand
I just thought they were going to be part of this thing, that the AFC South was going to be so bad that they would be in the mix and be Trevor Lawrence and just be like, oh, this is nice to have the Jaguars back. It's been a while. And they're coming off of a win. And they are another team that's been in a lot of one-score games like the Raiders and lost most of them, almost all of them until last week against the Raiders. But I look at their schedule, and I just don't see a path
It's
out.
a rough.
They're at Kansas City, and they have the Ravens after their bye, and that right there looks like 3-8. They also have the Titans and the Cowboys. They're at the Jets. They have the Titans twice. And there's just been nothing about this team, to me, that is special. I think they're kind of a mediocre team that's been on the wrong side of variance, and they're not that far from being a 5-4 team, but it doesn't matter. They can't get those wins back, and I don't think they're going to rally enough with that schedule.
They could lose all their games. I'm looking at their schedule now. I mean, maybe they beat the Texans.
They've been in the they're like a team where I've been so wrong. Every game I think I've picked wrong when it comes to the Jaguars. Every game I picked
beat the Chargers. So
they lost to the Texans already, so you're right. Anything could happen there.
Travis Etienne is really he's really stepped up the last couple weeks, so that gives them another kind of a real dynamic talent there. And Trevor Lawrence did play well.
He did
in a
really
win last week. So it's like, they have been in close games. I don't know about this one.
The fact that they're playing the Chiefs and the Ravens next are what really scared me off more than anything. And at some level, it's giving some faith to Gravedigger's Titans, and maybe I shouldn't. If the Titans come way back to the pack, then the Jaguars can be in the division mix. But
I would fork them, Gregg. I think
I'll do it as well because what you said, they had their chance to be in decent position to absorb these next 2 losses most likely, but they kicked away that opportunity, and it's going to be too late, Bridget.
I'm going to fork them.
We've now forked 3 teams in the
Look at
AFC.
that.
Okay.
We are flying here. The fork is out, and it is sharp. I will nominate.
We're like in Irsay mode right now.
We are. We're going to definitely pay for this. I will nominate the defending Super Bowl champions, the Rams.
Controversial.
It's one of those things. It's kind of like you were saying with the Packers, Mark. Let's not forget that they kind of stink. Mm-hmm. And it's not the defense's fault, as Jalen Ramsey will point out. But the defense hasn't been great shakes either. I mean, they've struggled to get to the quarterback. They've struggled to cover. They have been vulnerable on that side of the ball. And the offense is a total mess. Would it stun you if you learned that Matthew Stafford's elbow really was a thing all season? It wouldn't stun me. The running game obviously is bad enough that Cam Akers is re-entering the mix. You know that the Rams did everything and they were trying to please take our first-round picks, and they couldn't pull off the trades that they felt they needed to save the season. So now they're just moving forward with what feels like a broken team. So with the schedule, they are 3-5 with the home against the Cardinals, at Saints, at Chiefs, home Seahawks over the next 4 weeks. This is me going out on a limb, but I feel like they deserve to be put on the board for discussion. Thoughts?
I think whoever loses Sunday between the Rams and Cardinals, season is over. I think that is a test.
Fork-off. Classic.
It's a classic fork-off. I
Yeah.
love that. Because both of these teams are kind of in similar positions where their seasons could end right now. And I think the Rams, again, like I said a little bit ago with I forget who we were talking about, when Jalen Ramsey says it's not our fault, our offense shouldn't come over and tell us we're going to need you again with a minute and a half or whatever, then
right.
mismanaging the clock. I think there's so much tension, and I really believe that interferes with what's going on. You can't get people on the same page, and with so many injuries to their offensive line, I just don't see them making a comeback.
That's for me. I think they have unfixable problems. They're not alone. There are other teams, especially in the NFC, that have some unfixable problems. But the line has been such a poisonous scenario, and it's uncorked everything they've tried to do. They've scored under 14 points or under in 4 of their last 5 games. That came against good defenses, but the Rams, we knew it didn't matter what defense you played. You found your way out of it, and they had their bye week. Everyone was selling them as like Sean McVay, and everyone's going to go huddle up during the bye week and figure all this out, and they came out and laid a massive egg against the Niners and then lost a terrible winnable game against the Bucs. Bye.
Sad. My daughter makes this Rams shrine every Sunday. It's got
She's got to get her act together.
A different paraphernalia. What do you mean? Well, the shrine's not working. It worked last year, and so she's sticking with it. They don't pass the eye test like more than the Packers. The Packers seem to me like they're not that bad, but they just make mistakes. The Rams are just not a good team. They're 27th in DVOA. They're one of the worst offenses in the league. At no point this season have they looked like anything but one of the worst offenses in the league. They're only 1 game back, and I tend to think they'll win this week if I had to pick it. And so they'd be 4-5 in a muddied NFC, and they got the coaching staff. I have a hard time forking them, even though I have no real faith in them at all. So I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth.
I hear it. So you don't want to do it. So let me quickly pivot. Then if we're talking about a fork-off on Sunday, I am all in on forking the Arizona Cardinals.
Ahead of time.
Anybody that listens to this show knows that I am not a fan of this entire regime and the way things are structured. Every week is a comedy of errors. How about the Cardinals? Do we need to wait to see them lose to the Rams, Bridget?
I haven't seen enough of their games because I've watched so many Chargers, and I think they're in the same window. So I'm not good, but I'm gonna.
Does that mean she's recusing herself from
Wait,
this
this has never happened. We did put you in a tough spot here, Bridget. Not only do you have to come on.
I mean, how many fan bases can hate me after this
right,
episode?
but we're basically just asking you to be the most negative possible in the most negative show of the season.
What if Sunday decides it? Or you're saying you want the Cardinals gone now?
I would be comfortable forking them
Bridget.
now. I don't need to see any more from the Cardinals. They can win Sunday, and I'd still feel fine.
I can live with the Rams. I can't live in a world where we still take the Cardinals seriously.
I'm with Dan that even if they win that game, and that's a winnable game for the Cardinals, I believe what's going on offensively there is so rotten to the core. And they have a great quarterback, but we've seen what their offense is, and there's nothing exceptional about their team or their defense that's going to make up for it, whether it's the coach, the defense, the players.
They don't get this
nothing's getting it.
We don't give them the Hard Knocks theme.
Tomorrow.
I'm watching this show, though.
Tomorrow.
This is going to be intriguing. But to your point, they've got 2 games left against the 49ers. Let's say they probably lose both of those. You're 3-8.
All right, give them the Hard Knocks theme. I didn't know everybody was plugging in on it.
I want to watch.
What? I'm surprised. I get why. During the season, it's a heavy lift, but you don't want to see what's going on behind the scenes with this team a little bit?
I'm good. I got a lot going on.
Are they going to show us Kyler watching film? I think that's all we want to watch with the little clock on the side.
Did you guys see the clip? Buda Baker yelling at everybody that he's tired of losing?
I did.
And now he's out 2 to 3 weeks. He's one of their best players. Their schedule is a point.
Well, that's how you get tired of losing, not be available.
Well, yeah, that happened afterwards, unfortunately. Their schedule is 1 point in their favor because they have so many division games at least that's in their control. The best team they play record-wise the rest of the entire season are the New England Patriots and the Chargers.
Yeah,
so,
but
like,
there's 2 games against the 49ers. You're not.
Sure, but they're a 4-4 team. You
yeah,
want
but the 49ers
games in your
are
division
getting better
left.
and better. That's all.
Yeah. I'm just saying that's an easy as schedules go, it's manageable. But I'm with Dan. I've just seen enough that I don't
Marc?
need to take them seriously.
This was like a team I wanted to be fun. Like last year, I liked them a lot, and like this is sort of you guys were depressed about one of these teams.
I
like,
barely watch them live because Marc claims the Cardinals every week.
I'll do it. I like to be daring with this because it's like, oh, it's so bad if we lose and we have to give to charity. I don't even know if we did last time. It was just a bunch of talk, but like.
That's terrible.
That's horrible.
What?
Don't admit that.
No, I did. Greg and I did.
It was you. Yeah, we did.
Wes did too.
No, that's not true. That first of all, if
Evans
you're listening to this,
to Betsy.
that is an absolute narrative, an absolutely incorrect.
Well, they
narrative.
are listening to this.
Well,
Otherwise,
wait,
they
how
could
are
not hear
How
you.
are you saying you went from not knowing what happened to
'Cause it
knowing for
wasn't-
sure that we didn't donate? We certainly
It
did.
was not
Of
a
course.
team
We had
that
meetings about it.
It was not a
I
team that
remember
I
it.
was pushing or like championing to be
It was
forked.
the Los Angeles Food Bank, as I recall.
I don't know what to say.
So
I'm leaving.
send your invoice to Marc Sessler at
All right, listen.
Johnny Bananas Hawthorne Drive.
Johnny.
You listener, you try to think in your mind if you think Gregg has donated to anything. Just
course.
ask yourself that question.
All right.
That's
do
rude.
you have-
I mean, I donate. Me You and all my donate to friends a are lot. jerks.
It's very hot.
bet-
It's very hot over here.
Because you're bringing it. I mean, I donate to a lot of stuff, so that's
But you
unfair.
shouldn't tell people that.
Well, when you're
Guys,
confronted on it.
okay.
Wow.
All right, sorry.
Calm down. Bridget, do you have any other team? You don't have to.
Mine was the Texans, so we
took care of the
we took
Texans.
care of
We
it.
took care of the Texans.
Easily.
Anybody else that you guys want to throw out there?
The Cardinals were on my mind, but yeah, we got to do the Steelers.
Yeah, are we
I think
forking
you
the
could have.
Steelers?
I think you could have put them in the early window.
I'm cool with that.
They have some berserker energy potentially because of Mike Tomlin.
Big berserker energy.
But the fact that they're in the AFC and we keep eliminating these AFC teams, this would already be 5 gone, which is how we've gotten into trouble in the past. But
We are very certain who's going to the postseason on November 8th.
I don't see a path to 10 wins, and I'm with Marc. I think that's what it's going to take in the AFC.
How about the Lions?
I can't fork them.
I'm not forking them.
I
Not after
refuse.
what Dan can't.
They're
just
the
said.
around.
refuse.
They're the around the NFL.
I mean,
Now
it's
that's
just
who
around
gets the
NFL.
song. Giving it to the Cardinals.
What about the Broncos? Can we fork them?
Ooh.
Oh, I happily would.
I kind of would
Let's
too.
see. Let's
After
take a
I
look at
heard
their
about Russ
schedule.
doing high knees on the plane, I was ready to fork them.
I happily would.
Marc, you're cracking
What?
me up. Yes, let's see. They have at Titans, woof. I don't know if Tannehill's playing.
Okay, they could beat the Raiders.
Okay, then they got
Could beat the Panthers.
home Raiders, winnable. At Panthers, very winnable. At Ravens, toughy. Chiefs, toughy. Cards. I mean, I feel like they can get back to 500 here.
That's a little concerning.
I don't know. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it.
At some point,
Sorry.
wait,
Limited.
did we fork the Steelers there?
I was
lost
fine
track.
with it. Are we cool with the Steelers?
I'm just saying, yeah, if we fork the Steelers, then we've in the AFC forked the Steelers, Texans, Jaguars, and Colts. That's not that many. Four feels fair.
I think the Steelers are going to part ways with their offensive coordinator in about 2 or 3 weeks, and the floor is going to fall out even further from there. A lot of changes are coming, and they're not making the playoffs.
I think the AFC-NFC dynamic is real. If you look at the AFC standings right now, for instance, the Colts are 10th place, and they're 2.5 games back of the playoff spot, which would be the Chargers right now, and the Dolphins are at 6-3. Whereas in the NFC, like 2.5 games gets you all the way back to basically the end of the entire conference. Carolina's within 2.5 games of the 7th spot. So to me, it's too far for the Steelers to catch up.
I'm out on the Steelers.
Okay.
Let's go.
Yeah. All right. So they're done. Broncos. Yeah. I'm not totally.
Greg, it was not right of me to suggest that you don't donate to things. I know that you do, and you're a caring person.
No,
so I
don't.
take that back.
I
Things
like
just
it.
got a little hot there. That's all.
I like it when we find out how Marc really feels during the show.
It's not how I really feel is
Aren't
what
you
I
happy
just
you
did.
came on this episode?
I just feel like I'm going to get off here and donate right to charity.
All right. Anybody else want to throw a team out there? I want to make sure we're not missing anybody. The Commanders.
Oh, I can't
No.
fork them. Not with Taylor Heineke.
Okay.
I don't see another team right now.
What about the Saints?
Well,
All right. Now, the Saints, as you could check it out on the Monday night recap with Jordan Rodriguez and Gregg Rosenthal, they no-showed on Monday night. I know the Ravens are a great team, but that was disheartening to say the least. And it makes you think that even though we were gassing them up a little bit last week and the idea that maybe there's something there, now I'm less confident. I feel like this might be – I feel like their only chance now, and this is crazy because I'm not a huge fan of this quarterback, but get Jameis back in there and see if it could juice him up. I don't know.
Sounds like they're not going to, at least this next week. I tend to agree. It might be time to switch back.
The Dalton-assance isn't happening?
I don't think the quarterback position is particularly relevant to their team. Because to me, I mean, I don't think either one is going to save them, and I don't think either one is their main problem. They have so many problems, and yet I'm not going to fork them in this division. I am not convinced the Bucs are going to get it together, and I still think the Saints and Bucs are the two most likely teams to win this division. Sorry,
I think the Falcons are going to win it.
They do have a little more.
They have a
juice.
Week 15 tussle with the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm not on board necessarily the Saints, but I don't want to fork them. I think the division is.
I think that was bold, and I think their fans have given up. Like I that doesn't surprise me.
Well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
does it? I mean, like if they had the Steelers and the Rams, they could be 5-6.
Yeah, their schedule is favorable.
I mean, they're not a good team, but like we're talking about the worst division we've ever seen.
One of these teams that we've talked about today, whether we fork them or not, will be awesome in the second half. That's just
right.
I mean, no,
Probably
I mean
the
it's
Packers.
true. There's no question that the numbers say more than one will be awesome.
Right.
Of all the teams we've at least discussed, not necessarily that we forked. Like that's how the NFL goes. That one or two of these teams will catch absolute fire, even if it's hard to see.
Just
now.
for my,
I told you the Colts.
My bookkeeping here before we close this seg and move to TNF. Where did we come down on the Raiders?
We did not fork them because of you.
Fork them.
Good. I was the only one?
No. I mean, you
I
started.
supported
You
it.
were the
Right.
first descent.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, then, with that said, as per tradition, fire up the funeral dirge, and I will now announce the teams whose seasons are over. Sorry to the fan bases, and please keep listening to this podcast.
Right. We don't know anything.
We should just do it like disguised voices so nobody knows which one of us are forking who.
The Green Bay Packers. The Arizona Cardinals. The Jacksonville Jaguars. The Pittsburgh Steelers. The Indianapolis Ursays. The Houston Texans. And the Carolina Panthers.
Wow.
So that's 1, 2,
Rest in
3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams.
It's a lot of teams.
Right. That's almost a quartile of the league.
That's almost a quartile. They're all doomed, you see. I feel like we're going to regret it.
We definitely are.
Yeah.
I know I am.
I think
We went too hard.
Well, this is why you've been effective at like shaming me into always like, well, the numbers say someone's gonna come back, but
I just do it for the show.
Who are you most worried about of the teams we just
the
forked?
Packers.
Samesies.
I mean, they do have the guy who won the MVP.
God, he
the
was so
last
bad
2
in that
years.
game.
I
but
thought we didn't.
Here's
I thought
the thing.
we didn't fork the Packers.
No, we did.
We did. Here's the thing about that game, because you said you thought they've been unlucky. I thought that game was there. The yards were there. The points were there. And Rodgers just no-showed on like 4 or 5 big throws in that game. Is that unlucky, or is that him getting old, or is it just like a bad day at the office?
And the final 4th throws. I think also like it's the opposite of what's happening like with Tua, where he may not be the most accurate passer on the planet deep, but like your receivers, Tyreek Hill, are you're making up for it.
That's a good
like
call.
Aaron Rodgers
GC,
does
bro.
not have those people around him.
Like
and
that play to
he's
Lazard,
frustrated.
that was another huge play. I thought Rodgers put it right on him. He almost had it. It got overturned on review. That stuff happens a lot with – that's why we forked him, right?
That's a good
I
point
just
you
think they
made,
have
Mark.
too
Yeah,
many
that's a great
injuries.
point, Mark. That's a good point, Mark.
Thank you, Zach.
Injuries, yes, as Bridget says. All right, do we take a break and hit TNF? Let's take a break. Are we feeling good about this 7? It's too
No,
late.
Well, we
absolutely
can't-
not. But.
Yeah, we can't change it now.
But we can't change up the voices, and we can't start pointing fingers. That's what would happen in the Packers locker room.
Right.
We need to stick together as for Bridget.
Right.
This
Right.
is a blood oath.
It is.
Because you came on this particular show, you are responsible, and
Right.
we will
Okay.
take equal
For the
blame.
charity, too. For
Yeah.
the- yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I'll sign the check.
Once Old Man McFadden comes on and says your
Right.
team's name, it's over for you. All right. We'll be right back with a TNF preview. All right, here we go. We're back. It's time to hit the first game. Greg, can you believe it? Week 10.
Whoa. Hey now. The season just
that
goes
out,
so
don't worry.
fast.
Yeah.
It just goes so fast.
Can you believe it?
This is not TV.
It goes fast. It goes fast, Bridget. And we have a nice matchup here between the Atlanta.
Bridget was like, my word.
Okay. Oh, my pearls must clutch and declutch. All right, here we go. Falcons at Panthers. As you said, Bridget,
Riveting.
you have covered the Panthers. You like individuals connected to the team. And yet, this same team gave up 42 consecutive points in their previous game. And the Falcons, as we talked about in another absurd Tuesday segment earlier this season, kind of spicy, right? Frisky.
Oh, yeah, they're spicy.
Yeah, so you got a spicy Falcons team and a need-to-have-it game against the Panthers team that's running out P.J. Walker off the worst game of his life, I would presume.
Yes, and Steve Wilkes, the coach, like I mentioned before, when asked why he wasn't benching P.J. Walker, he said, if I went off of everybody having bad games, I could bench everyone, which I don't really know. I don't know if he realized what he did there when he said that.
I mean, including himself.
Yeah.
You know.
So, but they are going to have to staff a field. So I just think that the Panthers, like I mentioned before, the details to Baker Mayfield's contract, I think they're going to keep him out to try and not have to give up.
And he looked good in that game. It was a good situation.
That was his
for him,
best
but
game that
yeah.
he played as a Panther.
Why
But just such an unfortunate situation.
So that
I mean, it was total garbage time, but he quickly brought points to them, and they were a disaster.
That becomes a tricky thing, and you want to know what's going on behind the scenes there. But like Baker, on that game, obviously he gives them a better chance to win. Is that what ownership and front office wants?
He alluded to a short week. I do think we see Sam Darnold. I'm with you, Dan, that this will most likely be P.J. Walker's
and
last
then
start
Sam,
anyways.
Yeah, after this week, because they're not going to suit up all three.
Is Darnold healthy? I know they had to take him off IR
Yeah.
or the season was over. Is he even capable to be starting a game? I mean, we'll get to that.
Is he capable to be starting a game
Here's
even
the thing,
if he's healthy?
They
That's fair,
dominated
too.
the Falcons in that game. I know they ended up
Yeah.
losing it, and we've talked about the P.J. Walker greatest play in the history of football that broke their hearts, and they couldn't recover. Now they've had an extra
I woke
couple
up in the
days
middle of the night thinking about it, by the way.
to recover, and that was a game where they physically dominated Atlanta, which not many teams have done. They mostly stopped Atlanta's running game, not totally, but better than most teams. And they pushed them around when Atlanta tried to pass, and their offense looked awesome in that game. P.J. Walker was a little up and down, but guys were getting open. Like, for 1 week, they really made sense, even though they ended up losing the game.
I mean, the Falcons, if anything, I want to hang my hat on the 8th offensive DVOA, 4th in the run. We know they can do that. They're the 29th defense, and the Panthers are the 28th. So it's like that's what happened in that other game. I mean, my thing is they so no-showed last week. 21 first downs in the first half to 1. The Bengals out first downed them. I mean, what's going on here? Like, that's an absolute disaster. And P.J. Walker, like, I was excited for what he was doing, and he completely – that's this season. Weird stuff happens, and it's a division game on Thursday night. I could see the Panthers scoring 28 points at home and winning the thing.
That's a thing that you can never really count out. Panthers at home, I could see them winning too, but I just have a lot more – hype on the Falcons than I think a lot of people do. I was there at training camp, and there's something about them that talking to people there, they have pieces. And Cordero Patterson, he's off IR. I don't know if he's playing this week.
Made a big difference last week.
Or he played, yeah. I think also what is it? Like 6 of 9 of their games have been decided by how many points? 4 or less. So I think some of those losses could be wins. I think the Panthers have too much going wrong. And how many times have we covered the Panthers over the past couple seasons where they are in middle of the pack, then they get this first rounder that doesn't really, maybe a defensive guy, Brian Burns or someone that makes a big difference. They need the first pick in the draft. They need Bryce Young.
Yeah.
They need a quarterback to turn this
They've
around.
been trying to get that guy forever now.
Right. So
Feels like.
if
I mean,
we're
they
going to
could have had Justin Fields if they wanted, but they chose not to. That
well,
was up
maybe
to
if
them.
they have I feel like
Not saying
they don't do
would have
great
made
with like
sense
the
or not, but that was their choice.
the 6th or the 8th or the 10th. They need the first pick in the draft next year, and I think whether you want, of course, the coach is saying we're not tanking it, and I don't have any inside knowledge that they're tanking it, but I think why not tank? Do it in a secret way.
Well, that happens all the time. And I want to say this. I'm going to say 2 things here. First of all, Greggy, on Sunday you mentioned that Mariota was kind of driving you nuts a little bit with his inaccuracy. I'm pulling my hair out watching this game yesterday and how many throws Mariota misses. They win. I mean, we talk about Kyle Pitts. Why doesn't he get used more? Kyle Pitts is open for the game-winning touchdown.
That throw is insane.
And it's a 73-yard touchdown. All Mariota has to do is just put some air under it and let this dynamic young tight end catch it and run to the end zone. He'd blown by the secondary, and he aired it over his head by 5 yards, and that happened over and over in that game. So it's frustrating, and I understand Arthur Smith's not going anywhere because on balance, I think they're building something here. But I just struggle to see them running this back with Mariota next year. So Atlanta, I think, is going to be another team in the market for a quarterback. However, I'm going to go ahead, Thursday.
Is he going to do it?
Thursday night, Daddy's going to have a couple Tito's. Daddy's going to be relaxing. I haven't done this yet. I don't know if anybody's done this yet. But I'm going to go ahead and lock up the Dirty Birds on the road here. There's a field goal spread here, which feels generous to Carolina, quite frankly. And I think the Falcons are just a better team.
I mean, our record as Lock Brothers.
Are you? Is he?
I think we're undefeated.
I think we're like 13-2.
I mean, that's essentially that you're a team in the conference title game with that record.
Yes, sir.
I am locking it up as well because you just get it out of the way. It's just an easy home run. You get it out of the way. What could go wrong?
Or it brings you total agony for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Even if they win, just knowing Marc, and it's the like island game, and then we have to come back on Friday, and I'll mention it.
Dig it in.
But I think this is a good lock.
Especially after the charity thing. He's going to come in with that.
I thought I came back around on that and showed my true feelings
cleaned it
to
up
Gregg.
a little bit. Cleaned it up.
At most, it was a cleaning it up.
I don't know about true feelings.
It's like a toxic waste.
I do think that you donate to charity because you've told me that you do before.
We've never talked about that.
That's
That's
Greg.
untrue too.
The person that does not share when they donate.
No.
Greg's like, I must share something with you.
No one's
I went
ever
to the Boys
talked
and Girls
about
Club
this.
today.
No one's ever
$10 in the slot.
I don't mean excessively.
I don't think any of this is true. Bridget, this is a chance. You could lock up a game on Thursday night. It's pretty, just get 1-0 on the season, and then you.
Then you're in
we
the
have
books.
official tabulated standings that a listener compiles, and you'd be in that
but
tabulated standings
you also
forever.
could be 0-1 and you'd be last
Triple
place
zeros.
forever.
And I won't be allowed back on until my 42nd birthday.
If getting locks was wrong, that's fine.
Let's up the stakes. Yeah, if you lock it up successfully, return on the show. If the Panthers somehow pull it off, unless you're picking the Panthers, that's it. It's Bridget's last show.
I just think I've been to so
much.
many games this year where I thought they were going to go one way and didn't.
Interesting.
I'd stay away. It's a division game.
It's tough. Like, I was at the Chargers-Jaguars game. I was at the Chargers-Seahawks game. Maybe it's me.
I kind of think the
Okay.
Falcons got the Panthers' best shot 2 weeks ago, and they managed to win anyways. And so I'm with you guys that I think the Falcons will win this game. But it is, it's a division game.
You want to join us?
I don't. I haven't looked at the whole slate, so I don't know what I'm going to do. But
I don't need to.
Well, Jeremy
I feel good
Chin,
about this one.
he came off IR. He was practicing today. Their safety, who will make a huge difference. I don't think he's going to play Thursday, though. That would,
So that's
that
not
would
going to help him.
Also,
Will said
if getting
he
locks
was hoping he would.
If getting locks was wrong, like Nick Wesseling would never be allowed on this show. So you can get locks wrong.
This is a tugboat heat check. I'm having a big season right now in the picks, and I don't even need to see the rest of the schedule.
Okay. I don't want to do it, though. I don't like it when we're all together.
Marc, it's a classic tugboat heat check.
Oh, it is. It's right. Put it right in that folder. In
All
that
right.
file.
Let's see. All right. You have said it all, Bridget Condon. You can follow Bridget on the old Twitter at Bridget Condon with an underscore. Did someone take?
I can't get the woman to give me it. She hasn't been on since like 2012. She has no tweets.
Now you got to deal with Elon Musk, so it's not going to get any easier.
Are you guys going to pay the $20 for the blue check?
I think I'll have the company pay for me.
Stick it to him.
Yeah, exactly. that will be expensed at the very least if it comes.
Hey,
to
company,
it.
you
At
handle
some
it.
point, though, it'll almost be embarrassing to have it.
Right? Because they know that you're
It's like,
paying.
I'm a Marc. But yeah, I wonder if that is really a thing.
What does that mean?
Just like
I'm a Marc.
kind of like
It's like you pay to go
well,
to your
no,
friend's
not
party.
you.
With a
Oh, I
C?
thought you were throwing that at me.
I mean, like you're the guy at the poker table that people see as the one that they can take money
I would
from,
be
you know?
honestly, I would have no problem if Twitter just imploded tonight and did not exist anymore. I could live with that.
Absolute injustice, Bridget. I realized I had not been following you. I just banged a
Whoa.
follow there.
You know, I was going to try and message you last night. I was like having all this anxiety about coming on the show. I'm like, I'm going to message
And
him
you
and
couldn't
ask him.
reach.
And I couldn't even.
Now
Your DMs are not open to.
Now, just to show you, I'm even going to send you my phone number through DM
my
to show that we
God.
are now.
Well, it's just
Friends.
interesting, though,
locking
Mark,
in.
the way Bridget's mind works, that she wanted to come with that anxiety and find out, to Dan. But when she realized she could DM me or you, she was like, nah, they don't really matter.
You check your DMs.
It's telling.
We didn't really register as that relevant.
No, I
to
knew
this
I was
show.
going to see you in makeup.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one way to spin it. Bridget, you've said it all. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for listening. Yes, check out the Monday Night Football recap with Jordan Rodriguez. Check out our Thursday program coming up where we preview the rest of Week 10. Until then. How you doing, Justin?
I'm
it now?
great, Dan. Thanks for asking.
No, your mic.
I'm playing the song.
Hey,
so
you
I-
forgot.
Yeah. Oh, don't.
right.
Oh, tough ending. Heed the call.